right, I will call the August meeting of Central Oklahoma Transportation Parking Authority to order. I think we have a grand day today as swearing in a new board member, Brent Bryant, our finance director. And I've worked with Brent on the TIF committee for a good number of years, so I'm thrilled to have him on the trust. So, Francis, if you'd like to swear him in, please.
My pleasure. Place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand, and repeat after me. I, Brent Bryant, do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Oklahoma, and that I will not knowingly receive directly or indirectly any money or other valuable thing for the performance or non-performance of any act or duty pertaining to my office other than the compensation allowed by law. I further swear that I will faithfully discharge my duties as a trustee of the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority to the best of my ability. Congratulations, Brent.
All right. Do we have any citizens to be heard this morning? If not, I would have an approval of our minutes of our July 12th board meeting, unless any of the trustees have any changes. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Consent docket. We've got 5 items on the consent docket. Are there any of the particular items that any of the trustees would like Jason to expand on a little bit? If not, I would have a motion to approve our consent docket.
Move approval of the consent docket.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Items for individual consideration. First is approval of a contract for engineering design services for the Northwest Bus Rapid Transit Project. This is for the design and the completion, actually, of the project. So.
Right, yeah, this is a big step in moving the Bus Rapid Transit project forward. Again, as you mentioned, it's approval of a contract with HNTB Corporation for engineering and design services for the Northwest Bus Rapid Transit Corridor. And with engineering and design services, HNTB will basically take us through the preliminary and final design stages, assist us with preparing the bid documents along with construction management as we actually begin building the Bus Rapid Transit Corridor. As you'll recall, it was actually back on June 7th when the Cotpa Board of Trustees authorized the administrator to begin negotiating a contract. Obviously, we use the city's professional consultant selection process to get to this point. We've been negotiating the contract since that time. And so what we have before you today for consideration is award of the contract to HNTB, estimated cost just under $1,500,000. And then with the approval of this contract, the action that we'll actually take following the meeting is giving HNTB notice to proceed on what we're calling at this point Task 1A, which is essentially the equivalent of about 15% design on the project, and then also a feasibility study of looking at protected bike lanes as potentially part of the project along Classen Boulevard. So the estimated cost for Task 1A is actually, it's listed there in your memo at $408,000. The source of funds for the overall contract will be 55% federal. However, again, for Task 1A, this will be funded with our capital reserves.
Jason, On 1A5 in the contract, when do we anticipate these first two meetings with stakeholders to occur? Like, and by stakeholders, I mean, actually, would you mind defining for us what stakeholders will mean in terms of the outreach to the community?
Yeah, sure. We haven't at this point defined that exact list, but conceptually, it will be some of the stakeholders that have actually been involved in the project even since the concept plan, which were some of the businesses along the route. I think we had some representatives from Penn Square Mall working with us early on, some representatives from Integris. But obviously we want to broaden that. We want to bring in some members of the community, probably some individuals, say, for example, from some of the districts along Classen, like the Asian district, and really try to make it a mix of district leadership and then businesses along the route.
Yeah, I love that. And then what's a timeline for when we might anticipate those two meetings? Is that like, it says the consultant will host up to 2 meetings with stakeholders.
Once we give HNTB the notice to proceed, we'll have, meaning staff, we'll have a kickoff meeting with our consultant, and we'll begin determining exactly what those dates will be. But they'll be early on in the process, of course, at least the initial meeting with the stakeholders.
I ask because there's a lot of enthusiasm along that corridor.
And we will make sure that the trust is informed of when those meetings are scheduled. But at this point, it's just, we know we're going to have them. They're going to be somewhere towards the early part of task 1, at least the first one. And once we give a notice to proceed, we'll get those things finalized.
Well, I'm excited. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? If not, I have a motion to approve item A. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Item B is for the administrator to negotiate and execute a contract for transportation services in support of the Arnell Family Foundation. So you might just give us a little explanation of that, since it is kind of a new item.
Yeah, this is a continuation of us really standing up a new transportation program in partnership with the CTAA, the OTA, and of course the Arnell Family Foundation. This particular item is basically authorizing the administrator to negotiate contracts with the transportation provider portion of the program. We will have transportation providers that will provide trips for the participants of the foster care reunification program. The transportation providers will provide trips for the participants, either again to fixed route bus stops or potentially their final destination. And we were looking to kick the program off, kind of introduce the program in early September. And so by authorizing and approving this item today, we'll be able to finish our competitive selection process for those transportation providers, have them in place before September 1st. Estimated cost for this first year is $60,000 just for the transportation provider piece of the project.
I might interject here, kind of goes hand in hand, but we all remember when Westminster 8th graders came and made a presentation to the trust, and I met with their whole class a couple weeks ago, and the principal of the school, and delivered 275 bus passes. And I thought what was interesting is they graduated from the 8th grade and are going to high school, but they're going to keep the whole class that was involved in this project together for the next year to get a completion of the project. So I was really moved by these young people and what they're doing, and this project is kind of similar to that, to provide transportation for the needy. So any questions? If not, I'd have a motion to approve item B.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item C is an adoption of our fiscal year budget, increasing it by $246,000.
Yeah, and I had mentioned, I believe, in the last meeting that we were looking at the potential of a budget amendment for our streetcar operations due to some expenses that came in over budget for our first year of operations. Some of that is tied to our inclement weather response. A lot of that is tied to some additional security expenses. But essentially, with approval of this item, we'll amend our budget. It's an increase of $246,764. Our overall budget would be $64,620,079. And of course, keep in mind that is a significantly larger overall budget amount than what we typically have, and that's because we do have the proceeds of the sale of the Santa Fe garage built into our overall budget in terms of receiving that as a revenue and transferring to our capital reserves. So with the streetcar operations, we were actually able to fund the budget increase through operating revenue that was also higher than what we had anticipated or budgeted. So of that $246,000 that we're amending the budget, $178,000 of that will be supported by fair revenue and sponsorship revenue that was in excess of what our original budget was. And then we'll be transferring $68,000 of contingency from transit operations. Contingency, of course, being funds that we have in the budget for like an emergency reserve, essentially, if we need it. You'll see later on in the financials that we finished the year under on our expenditures in every category on the transit operations. So we're able to transfer some of that contingency to streetcar.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Not, I'd have a motion to approve item C.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item D, and we had a Transportation Committee meeting yesterday on this, and most of the trustees were there, but it is the approval of an interlocal agreement for us to provide transportation services for the city of Norman. And this is a big step for us, big step for Norman, big step for OU. And I think it's just highlights the potential of our regional transit authority and the relationship Oklahoma City will have with all the surrounding cities. So have Jason just kind of brief us on that.
Sure, yeah, I think this is, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, a great opportunity to demonstrate the region's ability to coordinate transit service delivery throughout the region. We're looking forward to our partnership with the city of Norman. Their city council approved this item Tuesday of this week, and with approval of the item today, we will actually begin providing public transit service for the fixed route bus system for the city of Norman on Monday. So we're again, looking forward to that. The agreement that you have before you is actually an interlocal agreement between the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority in the city of Norman. We have estimated revenue from the agreement of about $2.4 million. Now that is a not to exceed amount on the for Norman in terms of their expenditures towards providing public transit. And then in addition, there's an estimated startup expense reimbursement revenue of about $1.2 million. And again, that additional startup revenue, we will work with the city of Norman in determining what types of improvements need made to the existing, basically, equipment and systems in Norman to integrate with the overall Embark system. Things like fare boxes, camera systems, software. The idea is eventually to have a seamless system. So whether you're riding the Embark system in Norman or you're riding the Embark system in Oklahoma City or Midwest City, Oklahoma County, for the customer, it's all essentially the same. So that's the ultimate goal, and there will be some startup expenses associated with that. But again, as you had mentioned, we met as a transportation committee yesterday, went through the agreement in quite a bit of detail. Some of the highlights of the terms is basically that Embark will be the operations provider. The city of Norman will actually be responsible for providing the buses and equipment, along with maintaining, washing, and fueling the buses. It does allow for Embark to take responsibility for the service in a phased approach. So again, beginning Monday, we'll begin fixed route service, and then we have through October to transition and begin providing their paratransit service. Norman will compensate Embark for full cost recovery of what it costs us to provide the service in Norman plus some administrative markup for delivering the service. Norman will fund, as I mentioned, some one-time startup expenses. And then again, the service will be branded as Embark. And so one of the, as I mentioned, one-time startup expenses, hopefully one of the first projects that we can begin on in terms of one-time costs is updating the bus stops for the city of Norman. We'll want to make sure we get our signage out there with our contact info and so forth. So lots of work ahead of us. We were working on an extremely tight time frame, so I do anticipate as we learn more about the system and the nuances of Norman, there could be some potential amendments in the future that we'll bring back to the trust, but we feel like we're at a really good starting point. And again, thank all the staff for the extra hours and time that they put into making this happen.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Jason, for you to take a moment and recognize the staff that did all this work. And you might recognize them by name even, just so
Sure.
you know.
Well, we could, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think everybody here at the meeting today, most of them had some type of role in setting this up, either from behind the scenes or many of them on site in Norman talking to employees and the managers down there. But y'all are obviously familiar with Kevin Mulcahy, our assistant director. I think we have Eugene Fritz there. Dan McKeon is not here today, but he's somewhere around here. Maybe I'm missing him. But anyway, Michael Scroggins, Suzanne Wickenkamp, Michael Shaw, Marilyn Dillon has supported us, I think, with some ADA. So yeah, lots of folks involved, and it has been truly a team effort, and everybody's pulled together. And two, working with OU and the city of Norman has been really good as well.
Well, it was a short time frame, and everybody's to be congratulated that we got this done, and I think it's I don't know, you say it's a feather in our cap, but it is something for us to provide that I think we ought to be really proud of. So, any questions on that item? Then I would have a motion to approve item D.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Item E is rejecting approval of final plans and specifications for ferry landing and terminal upgrades at the Meridian Landing and Stockyards and Exchange Landing. Just a brief explanation of that, Jason, I think.
Excuse me. So, as you'll recall, back in I believe it was early spring, we were awarded a grant from the FTA. It was a competitive grant that was going to allow us to make improvements at several of our landings along the Oklahoma River for the Oklahoma River Cruises ferry service. In addition to building a new landing at Stockyards, we worked with Triad Design. They helped us put together a series of projects which would include, again, a new landing at Stockyards, a permanent pavilion at Meridian, and then some improvements to the Stockyard landings. We bid those projects back in February. Unfortunately, the bids came in excess of the budget that we had, that we were able to allocate. So what we're doing today is we're asking the trust to reject those bids and authorize the issuance of new bidding documents. And what we will be requesting bids for this time around is simply just the new landing at Stockyards. And so we're confident with the amount that we received in the competitive grant, we will be able to construct that new landing at Stockyards, but we're going to continue on with the rest of the projects. We'll just simply use different funding sources. We have some 5337 state of good repair funds that are available for the ferry transit service that we provide, and so we plan on bringing another item back to the trust in the future, potentially as early as next month, for the permanent pavilion at Meridian, and it'll just simply be a separate project with a separate grant funding source, and then ultimately bring back another project for the improvements at Exchange.
Okay, so we're not dropping anybody off at there currently, since we don't have a landing.
Right. It'll just be an addition to our service with an additional stop on the corridor, basically there at Stockyards.
Okay. All right. Any questions? If not, I'd have a motion to approve item E. So moved. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item F is a resolution awarding contracts for the Convention Center parking garage. This is our other big item besides the city of Norman, and I guess Corey's going to bring us a little update on that.
Happy Friday, everyone. Our probable cause for building the garage was originally $28.8 million. Happy to report the bids came in under that by over $4 million. What we're asking for you to approve is for us to enter into a contract with Manhattan Construction Company for a grand total of just over $23.5 million. During the bid process, we asked for some ad alternates as there was a concern that we didn't know what the bids would actually come in. Ad alternate 2 was the allocation for the parking access revenue control system. In order to save approximately 12%, Cotpa staff will manage the installation of that equipment instead of asking the general contractor to manage that project. This garage, just to refresh everyone's memory, the original build will be 1,100 spaces, expandable to 1,400 spaces should those spaces be needed in the future. The garage will cater to the Omni Hotel, the new Boulevard Place mixed use, the Convention Center, obviously, Scissortail Park, and then we intend on when there's not an event, when the garage is not at its capacity, to allow events, users or people attending events at the arena and whatnot to utilize the garage for event parking.
What were the ad alternates we had, the options we had? You said we were maybe going to...
They were associated with the skins of the garage, the art and whatnot. It was just a method of making sure that we could do it right and not come back here and have to rebid.
And so how many of those are we going to...
We'll do alternate 1 and 3. I believe one has to do with this, I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's not this skin of the garage. It's the ceiling of the floors in the garage is alternate 1, and I apologize, but I do not recall what alternate 3 is.
Was that the non-slip?
No, it's a sealer to protect the concrete. More along the, not what we're accustomed to in the Arts District garage on the lower floors. That's a membrane to protect moisture to get from getting into the tenant space and whatnot. This is more of a clear sealer to protect it long term, moisture getting into the rebar.
Okay.
I have a question. So we're not doing alternate 2 with Manhattan, but we're going to spend basically almost the equivalent, but save 12%.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Just wanted to make sure that was the case. Thank you.
You bet. Any other questions?
So we're ready to award the contract. And,
We actually, staff has a meeting scheduled for Monday to start talking with Manhattan.
and when do we anticipate construction to begin?
I would say 30, 45 days.
Okay.
We're still in the demolition process. We've found some structure that goes about 2 to 3 stories under grade. That was a little bit of a surprise to us, but that's being demoed as of yesterday. I park cars. I'm not a construction guy, but it appeared to me yesterday that about 2/3 of the structure had been removed.
Well, there was always rumors, and maybe it's the truth, that there was an underground Oklahoma City back many years ago, and this may be part of it if it's 2 or 3 stories underground.
Like Atlantis?
Yeah. You know. All right. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Thank you. I guess, Corey, you're going to speak to item G, which are final plans and bidding documents for our public parking garage signs.
Yes, apologies. I thought this project would have been a little quicker but it. Staff has gone through DDRC and the Adjustments Board, and this project will take exact replicas of what we did at the Sheridan Walker Garage, attach 2 signs to the Arts District Garage at both entry points, 1 sign to the Century Center Garage at its single entry point, and then 2 marquee signs that are different. They'll be on the ground at the Cox Garage, if you go from roadway on-street parking and then that curb, we'll put them right at the curb. They're about 6-7 feet tall and 4 or 5 feet wide, and they'll be similar color and state public parking, but they will again be a marquee sign, LED lit, and the reason for the variance in the look and appearance of the sign is plain and simple. This will give us more impact for the driver to see.
Okay.
Total cost of that, estimated cost of that project is $385,000, and we're hoping to have it completed before the end of the calendar year.
You say the new signs will be compatible with the new ones, the few new ones we do have on the garages? Or
the Arts District and Century Center signs will be exactly like what's on the Sheridan Walker Garage. It's the Cox Garage that's a variant, and the reason behind that is plain and simple. The building, the Cox building where I would attach those signs to, are so far in from the curb that if we were to take those exact copies of the signs and attach them to the building, they wouldn't help us with our public parking message that all of our garages are open to the public.
okay. Good. All right.
Corey, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We've done surveys, like customer service surveys with our parking garage customers. What are their top 3 concerns about parking garages? What do they say? What's the response?
There's a little bit of a rumor that there's a lack of parking in the downtown area, and there's that impression, even though statistics prove it otherwise, both on-street and off-street. So we have a project underway to address that. When we did our survey some time ago with Cotpa garage users, unfortunately, elevators were one of their big concerns, which is something that we've turned around a complete 180. We were having some outages due to poor service.
Was the elevator concern specifically because of the one at Santa Fe, or were they talking about kind of across the board?
Santa Fe was the focus, but we were having problems elsewhere with a particular vendor.
So they were mostly concerned, there's this perception that downtown doesn't have enough parking, and you're working on a project to address that. Yeah, because I know that Laura talks all the time, and it's on my mind too. You know, that Arts District garage, beautiful, architecturally award-winning, but the occupancy, everyone here knows, is not where it could be. And yeah, there really is this perception. When I found it when I was knocking doors, people felt that coming downtown, where do I park? There's not enough parking. And in my mind, I'm like, Arts District garage. So I'll be very curious to see what you all do. And I think the signage here could go a long ways.
I've been in Oklahoma. I've parked cars for 20 years now, and there's never enough parking anywhere, no matter what state, what city, what block you're on, if you ask Joe Public. And the industry is really doing its effort, and we are here to walk a block. I mean, it's the study that's underway, you know, even where there's a block where, parking is at capacity, be it on-street or off-street, within one block, there's ample parking. So if we could just, if the public could just step back and walk a block, there's plenty of parking.
I think it's a good opportunity too to, part of the way of addressing the need for parking we've done through the Oklahoma City streetcar, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it allows more flexibility for people to choose where they park when you have a downtown circulator like the Oklahoma City streetcar. And again, reminding people that you really only have to park once, right? You find one place to park, and you can go to multiple, locations, destinations with the Oklahoma City streetcar. We think about our other transit projects like Bus Rapid Transit, right? People can choose to park even further out from the downtown in the future if they choose to, and ride the Bus Rapid Transit into downtown. So I think we're looking at enhancing or solving some of the perceived parking shortage through various means, whether it be signage or whether it be better transit.
Do we have bicycles available to all the parking garages? People could.
No, we actually don't have any of the Spokies stations located at any of the parking garages. We have them at other
They're not far,
locations
though.
throughout.
Spokey Station right here and outside of City Hall, and the Arts District Garage, of course, is right there. There's one, I believe, on the corner of the Cox Convention Center block. So that would be adjacent to the Cox Center garage.
So maybe signage at the garage, advertising for bikes, or we don't have to have the scooters, but there would be available.
Well, as Corey mentioned, the problem, and some of us are guilty of this, I'd like to park at the front door of wherever I'm going, which is not always possible. So
Chris, walk a block.
walk a block. Well, that's
Put it
what
on the
Jack
shirt.
Nicklaus told me about golf, play it forward. Look back at these guys back here, go forward.
I really like Jason's point about the BRT, and everyone who was watching the 84-hour Maps 4 presentation on Wednesday saw that for the first of those 2 hours, those riveting 2 hours, I think the BRT is really going to go a long way to alleviating some of these concerns, especially because of the park and rides that Jason presented as well. I think that's really important to let everyone know that we're thinking long-term in that way. And not even really long-term, we're talking like 3 years, 2023 when this is coming on board, this BRT.
All right. Any other questions on item G? If not, I'd have a motion to approve item G. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Last item on our docket for that is the change order to the Santa Fe parking garage for tenant improvements, and someday we're going to be through with the garage, I hope, but
Yes, change order 6, UCO project. So $1.4 thousand of this is for some condensation pumps for the HVAC units. $4,000 for a fire system air compressor. It keeps the pipes in the garage, pipes for the fire system in the garage and tenant space full of air so that moisture doesn't get in there for when winter hits and pipes freeze and break. And then the big chunk of it was $8,000 for moisture mediation so that the carpet and its underlayment won't peel up because we found moisture in the concrete. And then a refrigerator for the UCO space. I realize that this is change order 6 for what is a small project. But it represents just over 1.2%. So we're just under $34,000 under budget for a $2.7 million project. I'd like to comment about some of these change orders and the concessions that staff and UCO has made through this project. A lot of these change orders were deducts where UCO took out many appliances because we found unforeseens early on in the project. So UCO and the project really did a fine job in removing some of the higher end items and luxury items in order for this project to come in so close to budget. I do need to prep you that late last week, after the board agenda item was done, there's likely going to be change order 7 coming. We've heard back from the fire marshal, and we might have to do some adjustments to the fire system. But the new ownership and Cotpa have been speaking, and we're looking to split those costs.
But this whole project had to do with UCO, not the parking garage itself after we sold it.
Correct. But the UCO fire system and the garage fire system have to tie in together.
Okay. All right. No questions. I'd have a motion to approve item H.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you all.
Corey. Ratification and claims and payrolls for July 1st through July 30th. There seem to be more there than I've seen in the past, so I guess we wrote a lot of checks or something. But any questions by any of the trustees on that? If not, I'd have a motion to ratify.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Our financial reports. Budget to actual for the 12 months ending June 30th. So we're through this budget. So,
So we're wrapping up fiscal year 2019 with the budget to actuals report that is included in your packet this morning. Again, I know I've kind of mentioned this every year about this time, but this is, kind of the, I guess you would call it the soft close to the year. I mean, we're early on in closing out the books for fiscal year 19. So, the numbers could change some, but we don't anticipate anything significantly different than what you see here. And then we'll continue with our process of, once the annual financial report is complete, of having the accounting department come in and present a little bit more detailed look at how we finished FY19. But overall, in basically all of our family of services, we were in good shape on the budget. I can start with page 2. This is our transportation operations. And again, I'll keep my comments pretty brief here, but I did want to direct your attention to the federal grant revenue line under the revenue section there. On this report, we're showing to be $720,000 less in grant revenue than what we had anticipated. I do want to report that we have processed a reimbursement request in July for expenses incurred in June. So about $690,000 essentially is due to us as a reimbursement and will be booked back essentially to FY19. So again, when you get your final report, you're going to see that those federal grant revenues are actually almost right on target with what we had budgeted. On the expenditures, you can see we finished each of the expenditure categories under budget, with most of our savings coming from personal services, and that's related to vacancies, particularly in the areas of bus operators and mechanics. We would love to have those positions filled, particularly with mechanics. And then looking at our overall operating income, you can see our income is in excess of our expenditures by $1.7 million through June 30th. The next page, page 3, this is our parking operations. And again, if we could just start with the revenue section, I'll direct you to a couple of those revenue lines. First of all, the monthly contract revenue. We're finishing the year around $350,000 less than what we had budgeted, and I know we've talked about this throughout the year in terms of losing some of our contract parkers, and in addition, not retaining as many monthly parkers with the sale of the Santa Fe garage as what we had hoped to. That's really what's negatively impacted that monthly contract revenue. I also want to direct your attention to the revenue line for the sale of the Santa Fe garage you'll see a variance there of the original budget of what we had anticipated to receive from the sale versus what we have received through the time that this report was put together. You'll see a variance of there of $2.8 million. And that's because when we closed on the garage, we had these pending construction projects. We had, the UCO space we've been speaking about, which is a significant project in excess of $2.7 million. There was also some repair work we had to do in the space that the Skirvin currently uses for parking. So the estimated construction costs for those projects were actually held in escrow until those projects were completed and we had paid for those construction expenses. Then once we basically show proof of payment for those construction expenses, then we're able to receive those proceeds from escrow, and they'll be realized as a revenue. So just to give you the latest update on that, as recently as this week, we received close to $2 million from basically the closing company where the funds were held in escrow. So again, that's one of the changes. When the final report comes, you'll see that those budget versus actuals are much more in line than what you see with this report today. So looking at the expenditures, you can see that each one of our expenditure categories, again, is finished under budget. And through 12 months of the fiscal year, our revenues are in excess of our expenditures by about $2.4 million. Looking at page 4, looking at the river cruises, again, if we just focus on the operating income, we actually did finish to the good. We're at $36,000 more in revenue than what we had in expenses. And, this is, as we learned from Jeannie last month during the trust meeting, this has been a challenging season for us with ferry service along the Oklahoma River. And so, there's a certain amount of those expenses that are going to be there whether you run ferry service or not. But I think, staff has done a great job of trying to manage those as we can in spite of the shortfalls we see in the revenue, primarily due to canceled trips. And then looking at the Spokies bike share operation, again, we're finishing $10,000 ahead in terms of revenue versus expenses. Really, the main variance we have in this budget is just the revenue that we had estimated to generate from the bike share system. That revenue line there of $99,000 budgeted revenue was a combination of basically what the user pays to use a Spokies bike, and then sponsorship revenue. We did not receive a sponsor for Spokies bike share, so therefore we did not realize that revenue, and that's why that variance is what you see on your report. And then we've talked about streetcar operations and the budget amendment for that. So the budget for the streetcar will actually increase by $246,000, and the expenses as well. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions you have on the financials.
This is where you come in, Brent. No.
Well, I was going to add just one thing. On the Santa Fe improvements, you should receive, we'll get that process when we get the $1.25 million of TIF too that we had contributed to the project. That's not included in here, so that will actually increase your fund balance.
Right,
that
is correct.
So, and that's all.
Good. Bravo. Thank you. Okay. All right. Any other questions? If not, I'd have a motion to receive our financial reports.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? All in favor? Say yes. Aye. Okay. Thank you.
You go too fast, Chris. I can barely get it out.
Oh, okay. All right. Our program reports. Our transit system report. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, trustees. Nice to see you. Thanks for having us. I'm going to touch on 4 topics from the June 2019 transit report: safety, ridership, on-time performance, and how we stack up to our fiscal year-end goals. We were responsible for 4 preventable accidents during the month of June. One was fairly major to the tune of approximately $4,600 when we rear-ended a vehicle. The rest were fairly minor. We experienced 5 preventable or non-preventable accidents during the month of June. The major one was when a truck hydroplaned into our vehicle for $4,700. If you'll take a look at our, thanks Caitlin, our ridership slide. While we're doing that, Mr. Chairman, I hope you'll let me beat it on down to Norman as soon as I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you. I have it
So
here.
if we
too.
don't have the presentation,
Yeah, that's okay.
I know you have this data memorized, Kevin.
I do.
So.
I do. In fact, I could hold it up the presentation if you wish. But we provided 9,836 Monday through Friday fixed route trips, which were compared to 10,322, which was a 4.7% decrease. Sunday service, which I love, and if we had a baseline, by the way, of about 2,000 people who were lined up for years, so we've grown about 400 passengers or trips per day since January 27th when we started it. And in the month of June, we provided 12,435 trips, which is 12,435 trips more than we provided last June on Sunday. Our customers absolutely love it. Our daily average was 2,487 trips per day, which is fantastic on a Sunday. Fiscal year-end total ridership was 3,020,000 trips, a little bit more than that, which was 1.28% below the 3,057,000 trips that we provided the previous year, which is a real testament to Oklahoma City's generosity in providing new service for our customers. All of our peers were significantly less than that in their percentage decline year over year. It's fantastic, 1.28% down. The night service slide, which is in our minds, we averaged 491 passenger trips per night, which is a 9.1% increase over the previous June. Our on-time performance for the month of June was 67.5%, which is a 2% increase from the 66.1%, and a significant increase year over year on the average. We turn to our report card. We provided 92% of the number of passenger hours or passengers per service hour, 91% of the number of passengers per operating day, 92% on the on-time bus arrivals, 91% on the number of miles driven between the fixed road calls for the fixed route, 88% of the number of vehicle accidents per 100,000 miles, which, by the way, is 37,000 plus miles that we go between accidents, which is really very, very good given the fact that we have all this stop and go and those big buses and all that's going on. And if we run over a can of oil, we declare that as an accident because it is something that we didn't intend to do. So our reporting is extremely strict.
Kevin, sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
On that particular topic with accidents, on Wednesday when we did the transit presentation, we talked about equipping half of our regular bus routes in that fleet with signal prioritization.
Right.
Would you anticipate that would go some ways to addressing the potential for reducing accidents when you're not having to stop as frequently as we were suggesting at intersections, or is that just me being hopeful?
Well, the more influence we have over when we stop, the less probability there is for an accident. Mm-hmm. But most of the accidents happen when we are stopped. So, will it have a significant impact? I'll let you know next year.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Maybe add to that. So when you look at the literature, the case studies, whatever that's out there, to Kevin's point, traffic signal priority, there is the enhanced safety component in that. Obviously, the less stops you make, hopefully the less risk you have of someone, hitting you from behind or hitting one of our buses from behind. So, but it is one of those things, it's just virtually impossible to quantify. But yeah, the less stops we can make, the better, because that is our most common type of accident, unfortunately, is people running into the back of our bus, whether it be distracted driving or other causes.
Yeah, good point. Thanks for bringing that up. The number, it'll help with on-time performance too, by the way, which I just love. The last report card that we have is the number of passenger claims per 100,000 miles. We're at 124% of that, but it has declined steadily. With that, I'll be pleased to answer any questions.
Should we not, this coming year, in our summary of service table, put the streetcar in there?
Jesse has those things. Were you asking about the streetcar?
Yeah. Well, no, just our summary that shows all our different services.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just add a line item for streetcar.
I see.
Yeah, we could add that.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry. Yes, I didn't hear that you want to add. Yes, we'll be glad to.
And you'll have a cumulative total of all modes.
Well, when you report ridership to the FTA, don't you include streetcar?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we
So
report in
just
different
give us a
categories.
perspective of how many riders we're reporting.
Yeah. I mean, we have that on the next page on the streetcar ridership by month, but it just, to have it summarized there, it ought to be included in our grand total.
We will add anything you want.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other questions of Kevin? All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. See you.
Streetcar report.
Good morning.
Morning, Jesse.
Morning to the board. Welcome aboard, Mr. Bryant. Happy to have you. So I'll start off with a story. So yesterday, I was riding a streetcar. I didn't get his name and I didn't get a picture, but there was a gentleman riding the streetcar, riding around downtown Oklahoma City. His first time being in Oklahoma City. He was actually on a 30-day trip across the United States. He had traveled all the way across the northern part of the United States, and he's strictly trying to use rail. So he would fly into a city, catch a rail line, travel across the United States, and he happened to stop in Oklahoma City because he was traveling on Amtrak, stopped at the Santa Fe hub there, jumped off, caught the streetcar, was riding around downtown just kind of taking in the beauty of Oklahoma City. So it was pretty awesome to see that. So I was excited to see that.
Well, how did you hook up with him? How did you know about that?
I just out riding the street, doing what I do, yeah. Took my laptop with me, using the Wi-Fi, trying to get a little quiet time, and saw him, thought I'd introduce myself and get a story. Yeah. So every morning, whenever streetcar operators are coming in, reporting for duty, one of the things that they do is the supervisors in the OCC, the Operations Control Center, they'll go over the rule of the day, right? And so today's rule of the day is announcements. And so our streetcars are equipped with automatic announcements that announce the next stops, or hold on, the streetcar is about to take off. But then we also wanted to make sure that we emphasize that if there's a service delay or something like that, that our operators are communicating that with our passengers. And we realized that when we first started, we weren't doing the best job that we could in doing that. So we're continually trying to impress that on our operators, and they're doing a much better job. We've got some operators that love the opportunity to talk over the microphone to streetcar riders. Then we've got others that the idea of talking to streetcar riders just scares them to death, and they'll try to avoid it as much as possible. But we're continuing to advise them to do that. So one of the things that this does is when the operators come in, they check in, they get their orders for the day, we go over the rule of the day. We also check our operators for fitness for duty, right? So we make sure that they don't look tired, or they're ready to actually operate an 80,000 pound piece of equipment through downtown with pedestrians and automobiles. And so we've really instilled a sense of safety with our operators, right? And so an example of how that works is, so we recently had an operator that, while he was out on the alignment, he stopped for a break and was able to check his phone, and checking his phone realized that one of his friends had passed away, right? And so he knew that he wasn't going to be able to operate at the best that he could, so he radioed OCC. Supervisor brought one of our spare operators, came out, did an operator swap with him, and was able to let him go home and be able to mourn that death. And so we've really been able to instill that sense of safety with all of our operators and supervisors. long drawn-out version of the rule of the day. Sorry about that. So we've also continued working with ODOT to continue to resolve our corrective action plans that we received during our initial audit back in July of last year. We were able to respond to 4 new caps this past Monday, and Monday we're going to be responding to a few more. I want to take a second to really dive into what went into the startup of the streetcar, some of the plans that we developed, and so I'm going to run through that real quick. So we developed 7 safety plans, right? And so that encompasses anything from operating the streetcar to what to do if there's an unruly passenger or something like that. So 7 safety plans, 3 security plans. Those include like our fare enforcement plan. 11 operations and maintenance plans. Those include, operating the streetcar. It also includes our fleet maintenance plans. 4 testing plans. So we talked about, when the streetcar, we did static testing, dynamic testing. So all of those tests have plans involved with them. 3 project certification plans. 80 standard operating procedures, or SOPs. We've submitted and closed 122 caps. That's anything from, submitting a white paper that's an order to streetcar operators that they need to watch out for certain things, all the way to implementing closeout procedures for the leading rails on the platforms. And then the big number here, 24,763 total documents. Again, that includes a 1-page white paper all the way up to a 200-page plan. It definitely took a community here. Myself, Eugene, Molly for Embark, and Jason, we all worked together to develop all of these documents, and then also working with Herzog Transit to develop all these documents that have been submitted to ODOT. So one of those plans that we develop is the PTAS. We call it PTAS because in the rail everything is an acronym. The Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. And so what this is basically the safety plan for our agency. And happy to report that we're one of the first agencies in the entire country to finalize our plan. It hasn't quite been adopted by ODOT yet, but we're still one of the first ones in the country to finalize our plan. So to be able to implement that plan, we also do internal audits, right? And so Eugene and Molly, they come out, they'll interview operators, interview our key staff, interview myself and Jason to make sure that we're following our program. And so they've come out and they did the first audit covering the item number 1, the OKC Streetcar Project Safety Management Policy, and then 2, goals and objectives, our safety management structure. And so they were able to do that audit and submit that internal audit to ODOT. And then we just wrapped up the second audit of the program review and updates, and then the configuration management. And so we'll continue that audit throughout the entire year, making sure that we're following our plans. So last month, Trustee Sudel mentioned that we worked with OCPD for July 4th celebration. So leading up to July 4th, typically what OCPD does is they shut down Bricktown to allow people that come into Bricktown to see the fireworks to be able to leave quickly so that they can open the streets back up to automobile traffic, which would have meant that we would have been shutting down the streetcar also. So we worked with OCPD to make sure that we were able to continue service for the streetcar, be able to continue service into Bricktown. And so we worked really, really well with OCPD, specifically Lieutenant George and her people. As always a pleasure to work with. And it went off without a hitch, perfectly safe, and now we know for next year that we'll be able to do this and continue to do it moving forward. So one of the things that we're lucky to do, Kristen Torkelson was able to ride along with this STEM group that is sponsored by Devon Energy and put on by the OKC Memorial. And so basically she was able to ride along with this STEM group, pointing out objects across Oklahoma City and being able to show the beauty of Oklahoma City. The Oklahomans, David Dishman, was able to invited Mayor Holt and Senator Bice out to ride the streetcar and do a tour of local breweries and just kind of dive into really how the breweries are helping the development and economic development in Oklahoma City. And so we were happy to have them on board and to be able to provide that tour for them. So one of the things that Michael's group does is we set up this plan to offer 50% off streetcar and bus passes the first week of July. And so this is one of the advertisements that was put out on Twitter. And so what I loved about this was we were doing this, pushing these advertisements for this 50% off, but we also saw that other people on Twitter and just people out on the street, they're like, hey, don't forget, the week's almost over. Make sure you get your half off prices. And so, people were involved in that also, and word of mouth. So it was awesome. got a quick video here, the little 30-second video. So one of the things that we've done, that Michael's group has done, is the Love the Loops program. And so what that is, we knew that during the construction process of the streetcar that we impacted some businesses along the route, right? There's no denying that. We're well aware of that. And so one of the things that we've done is we've gone out and we've made these videos, and it helps advertise for the businesses that were affected along the route. And so we're able to push these advertisements. They're able to share these advertisements and help bring excitement back to their businesses. Thanks, Kate. Caitlin, you'll have to go to the next slide for me. So, as always, Michael's group always does an amazing job. That's just another example of that. And we'll continue pushing those Love the Loop campaigns out for businesses that are part of that Love the Loop campaign. So we've only got 2 Third Fridays free left for our summer here. August 16th is coming up pretty quick, and then also September 20th. So make sure you get out and ride. So I mentioned this last month. I wanted to make sure I threw a picture in here. So you've seen our enhanced pavement markings along our route of making sure that you park within the white line. I mentioned that the Jesse of Cincinnati came to Oklahoma City and toured our system, loved what we were doing with the enhanced pavement markings, went back and immediately started their program. One of the things that they did was they put it out on Twitter, choose the background color. You can do either a teal green or blue or a gray background. They saw huge support for the teal background, and so Cincinnati here pretty quickly will be rolling out their enhanced pavement marking program. Ridership. So, July was another great month for us. We stayed above our expected average there of 30,000 a month for the summertime with 33,000 riders. Again, you can see our trend here. Mondays usually being one of our slower days and gradually increasing and peaking on Saturday, and then a slight decrease on Sunday, and then just riding the wave all the way through the month. So one of the things that Transit does is they look at riders per service hour. So this is an example of what our riders per service hour, during the week we're averaging probably between 12 and 15 riders per service hour, and then on the weekends closer to 25 riders per service hour. And so what that means is basically how many riders are riding the streetcar per hour per service. Ridership by month, there's again July 33,000, our total ridership now over 300,000 at 309,106 riders. Fare compliance, again we're continuing our trend of Oklahoma City residents wanting to make sure that they purchase tickets before they ride the streetcar, so we're at 3.5% fare compliance there. Basically, you'll check a ticket and there's 3.5% of total tickets checked that they either don't have a ticket or they don't have a valid ticket. So it's pretty awesome considering Oklahoma City streetcar. Blockages by street. So we had mentioned this a couple of times. Looking at this now, it's a bit hard to follow, so I'll kind of walk you through it real quick. So the graph there shows the blockages by street. The colors are months. And so you'll see the left side of each street, the blockages are higher, and as you go to the right, they're going down. Again, we installed our enhanced pavement markings, made significant improvement on our blockages. If you'll pay attention to July there, our total blockages for the month of July was 54 compared to January where we were at 151 blockages, so pretty significant improvement. Also, while you're starting to see Cincinnati do the enhanced pavement markings, Kansas City is going to implement those same pavement markings. Again, I apologize for the hard to read slide there. That is it.
I suppose you're developing a master plan for the Scissor Tail grand opening?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So we're heavily involved in the grand opening plans. Kristen, myself, and others in Herzog Transit constantly attend those meetings, and so we're ready. We're excited for it for sure.
All right. Any other questions of Jesse? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
mobility management report.
Good morning.
Morning.
How's everyone doing today? I don't have any videos, but since he talked about SOPs, I might be able to be a little bit more exciting than him. So, pretty excited about that one. So, the numbers we're going to review are how we ended up in our mobility management division for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. So, with our senior transportation services, we saw a 9% increase in total trips, and that's year over year. For last fiscal year, we provided 45,474 trips. So overall, that's 4,077 more. We're very, very excited about that. And just as a reminder, this is a program that we have an Older Americans Act grant through the Area-Wide Aging Agency, and it serves seniors 60 and over in Oklahoma County. So we've been doing a lot of outreach. As we talked about last presentation, we were getting ready to do the Better With Age Health Fair and the Better Living Expo at the fairgrounds. Those both went very, very well. Citizens were really excited to see the Embark Well promotional materials. We had a lot of questions about that, and we've had a lot of phone calls since then. We did launch Embark Well on July 1st, and our plan is for the next 3 or 4 months is to really kind of focus our outreach on Embark Well specifically. So we're excited about that. Staff's done a fantastic job with these outreach events. For our homeless and low-income transportation, these are our year-end numbers. And as a reminder, this is a CDGB, Community Development Block Grant Funding Program in partnership with the Planning Department. We work with about 60 social service agencies across the city to distribute over 52,000 one-day bus passes to homeless and low-income individuals. We provided 680 emergency taxi rides. This is a service that's used pretty much by the Homeless Alliance if they need to move someone very quickly, and as well as the YWCA's Battered Women's Shelter uses these emergency taxi rides to move people out of dangerous situations and get them to a safe place as quickly as possible. As you know, when Yellow Cab went out of business in March of 2019, we lost about 10 weeks of service on Share Fare while we were trying to identify a new provider. We relaunched that with Send a Ride, which is a local company similar in structure to Uber and Lyft. It has been incredibly well received. The citizens really enjoy it. I've gotten numerous phone calls from passengers saying this was the best ride that I've ever had. They were very polite. They were very helpful. So we're really excited about that. We have relaunched this, and we are providing trips again. Next time we'll have a report of those trips. It obviously is not being used as much because anytime you break a service off like that for about 12 weeks, it's going to take a little bit of time for it to ramp back up. We are in negotiations with the participating cities that used the old Share Fare program, and we're hopeful to be able to launch in those cities either September 1st or possibly October 1st, because as you know, we have to go through, each city council has to approve an agreement between the two cities about how the program's going to operate. Our plan with that is for Embark staff to handle the administrative functions of the Share Fare program for the participating cities, and then we'll just charge them a yearly small administrative fee for that, as well as charging them for any subsidy trip usage by the citizens that live in their locale. So we're quite excited about that. We've had a lot of phone calls from individuals in other cities wanting to start back up with the new Share Fare. So we're excited to get that going. So Embark Well, we're very, very excited to Embark Well. This launched on July 1st, 2019. And for Mr. Bryant and anybody that might have need a refresher on that, Embark Well is a program that we're funding with local funds as a pilot program during this fiscal year. We are opening it up to individuals that are 60 and over, and it provides round-trip transportation to 6 locations across Oklahoma City for wellness and exercise. Our goal with staff is, since we had never really done a program like this, everybody kept asking us, well, how much do you expect the ridership to be? How many people do you expect are going to use it? We didn't have any idea, so we just we decided, we took some of our other services, figured out how often they were operating, and we set ourselves a goal. Okay, we thought it was reasonable in the first month with a very brand new program that we'd do 40 trips. We thought that was probably a reasonable number. We did 80. In July, so it is very popular. We exceeded it. We doubled what we had hoped to get to. These are the 6 locations. As a reminder, it serves both the currently operating MAPS 3 senior wellness centers. It serves 2 Oklahoma City Parks locations at Woodson and Will Rogers, and then the Integrates Healthy Living Center up by Baptist, as well as the YMCA Lincoln Park location that's over by the Oklahoma City Zoo. We have had interest in all locations, and we are, Pete White is indeed the most popular at this particular juncture. Our goal with this program in this fiscal year is to identify a permanent funding source so we can continue it on in the next fiscal year. And our goal beyond that, of course, would be to serve the other MAPS 3 senior wellness centers as they come online with a route in that area for citizens. Lastly, let's talk just a little bit about the Arnell Transportation Innovation Grant. As a reminder, this was a partnership between the Community Transportation Association of America and the Oklahoma Transit Association. We applied for and were awarded the Transportation Innovation Grant. Our focus is on improving outcomes in the foster care system in Oklahoma County by increasing the amount of families that are able to reunify with their children. What the DHS found was that about 50% of the non-successful reunifications are due to the fact that the parents are unable to find transportation to complete their program as they've been ordered to by the Department of Human Services. So this is a $1 million joint project over 4 years. We will put out, as Jason told you when we were discussing the board item that we had a few minutes ago, we will do a limited launch to kind of work out the kinks, because as with any kind of a new service, you know, there are going to be kinks. And so we're going to take a small cohort of participants that are in the program that participate in what's called the Family Tree Program at North Care over on General Pershing, and those will be our test subjects for the limited launch. And then we will go with the full complement of service starting in October. Embark is the grant administrator on this and provides all the transportation and the day-to-day operations of this. We are RFP on the street right now for our transportation providers, which closes on August 14th. The reason we requested authority to go ahead and negotiate those agreements is because the limited launch starts, and with the new service, we need sufficient time to train and orient the drivers and the administrative staff at those providers on how this program needs to work, how they will be billing the trips, and things as well. We are also, CTAA has put out an RFP to get the complementary piece of this, which is the software program. What we visualize that looking like is a mobility as a service type of an application that is on your mobile phone. So basically, you're a participant in this program. You would get your mobile device out, look at this application. It would have a list of your scheduled required appointments that you need to go to, and it will figure out what is the cheapest mode of transportation for you to go there, whether it be Embark's fixed route bus, whether, as Jason mentioned earlier, it's a first mile, last mile connection from their residence to a bus stop where they can take the bus forward to wherever their end route goes. So we're very, very excited about that. The Oklahoma Transit Association's piece of this grant is putting together and providing trauma-informed training for these individuals. So we're very, very excited about that because they've agreed to go ahead and allow our bus operators to participate in that training as well at no cost to us.
Marilyn, I do have a question about this.
Yes, ma'am.
Will we plan to collect whatever data is necessary to demonstrate the success of the program? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. One of the things that we have done that I'll be bringing to you next month at the next time I present is what performance measures we've identified. Where we have some that are related to participant outcomes, the usual transit type ones about on-time performance and the number of ridership and things like that, but we're also going to have some outcome-based performance measures that are geared specifically.
I like the idea of collecting our usual types of measures, but I also like making sure that this is really causing the kind of outcome that the Arnall Foundation is looking for.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's one of the big goals, and we've been very, very active, and Arnall has been very, very active in those biweekly planning meetings to identify those measures. A little piece of the Arnell grant that I kind of wanted to introduce to you guys this morning is what we're calling Embark Explore. One of the things that we want to offer to these participants is some travel training to teach them how to use fixed route. This is just a really brief overview. Marketing is working on a logo, and we are fleshing out all the details to this. So during my next presentation, I hope to go do a little bit more of a deep dive into this and explain to you exactly what we were hoping to accomplish with it. But we just kind of wanted to give you a little teaser about that one. And with that, I'll take any questions.
The best passes we gave to the Westminster, I asked the question, I don't know there's any way to track the usage of that.
Did we, I'm assuming we recorded what numbers we gave them?
207, or 750 passes.
Yeah, we have the unique IDs for
Okay.
the passes.
Yeah, they have a unique identifying number, so it's a long number on each pass, and we have the ability to look at
we do have
those.
ability to see if they're being used.
We could, if that's something that you would like for us to track.
Yeah, I'd like.
It's something we take a look at randomly. We do random audits of our
I was just
CDG
so
bus
interested in the
passes.
program after meeting all these kids that I'd like to know if it was being successful.
Yeah,
All right.
well, we would be happy to add those numbers to our auditing monitoring if you'd like us to.
Thank you.
All right.
Any questions?
For Embarkwell, it depends on which location you're going to. For example, Pete White has a much more robust senior wellness class menu to choose from. So Pete White is served 5 days a week because the classes occur 5 days a week. But for example, the YMCA Lincoln Park, they have one class on a Wednesday that's geared towards seniors. So for Lincoln Park, that route runs on Wednesday to that class. So it just depends on which location it is. We geared the schedules of Embarkwell so that at the individual there's a morning and an afternoon, and it starts pickups around 8 a.m., drops them off at the center for 2 hours. They can either take a class or they can just walk on the treadmill, socialize with friends, however they want to use that 2-hour block of time, and then we go pick them up and take them back home.
All right.
All right, thank you.
I would hear a motion to receive our program reports.
So moved.
All in favor say aye. Opposed? Any items from the trustees? Jason surely has some closing comment.
I do, yeah. So Jesse told the story about the streetcar, so I'm trying to keep up with him. I'll tell a story as well, but it was a neat experience. Michael and I were on the streetcar the other day, and again, just it's happened to talk with one of our customers that was riding, a retired lady that was basically down here riding the streetcar to go to the Arts Museum. And so tying this back to parking, she was sure to share with me that one thing she liked about the streetcar was that she could find free places to park and then use the streetcar to get to where she needed to go. And I was like, well, hey, she's got the system figured out. But it was really neat to see, again, customers using it for its intended purpose. The other thing is, although she was going to the art museum, she was choosing to go ahead and ride the streetcar the entire loop and get off at the library stop for the shorter walk so she could enjoy the air conditioning of the streetcar. So I'm putting a plug out there for the streetcars are a very good place to cool off during these hot days. The other thing I wanted to mention too is Jesse had talked a little bit about the importance of customer service, and anytime we have any kind of delay on the service, we need to be communicating with our customers, and that's something that we work on. As he mentioned, we've been training some of emphasizing the importance of that with the operators. But our experience, again, I was on the streetcar and actually experienced a blockage. It was a temporary, maybe 4 minutes. I think it was less than 5 minutes that we were there, stopped by, someone that didn't park correctly in their parallel parking spot. But I did want to report out, and I hadn't shared this with Jesse, but I think in that probably 4 to 5 minutes, the operator asked for, attention, ladies and gentlemen, we have a temporary blockage. And then, maybe a minute later, we were updated that OCC had been called. Maybe a minute later, we were updated as a customer that a supervisor was en route or on scene. And then I think our last update was we'll be rolling in about 30 seconds. And so, that's in my mind, that's making the best we possibly can out of one of those situations. So anyway, just wanted to share that with the trustees. So hopefully we're going to continue to work on that.
All right. Nothing else? We will adjourn. And welcome to your first first trust meeting, Brent.